Rose.
So, Anita, where did you grow up?
Levittown, Pennsylvania.
So, what radio stations were you listening to?
When I was growing up, luckily, because I was living where I was, we were able to get some of the New York stations. So WABC, WA Beatlesea. I could listen to that.
So this is the height of 60s AM pop.
Yes, and then of course, all the Boss Jocks and WFIL.
Yeah.
And then when I got a little older, I switched to WMMR, and I listened to the Marconi Experience.
And this is the early 70s.
Early 70s, when I was going to Bucks County Community College.
And this was kind of a free-form station
It was completely free-form.
It was a commercial FM station.
Yes.
But, it hadn't changed yet.
The jocks picked their own music.
Were you a Michael Tiersen fan?
I was a Michael Tiersen fan. I still am a Michael Tiersen fan.
That was my show,
Yes.
10 o'clock,
Yes.
I'm a late night guy.
He was out there before we even knew what out there was.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he was on another planet from the beginning, and he just brought whatever makes Michael to his music, and that's what I loved. But so did all of them. I mean, Steve Martorano had his own way.
Ed Shockey.
Ed Shockey had his own way.
I would love to hear air checks of it because I was a young teenager then, and it was so great to me. But you want to go back and see, was it as good as I remembered?
You know why it was? Yes, it was because it was so. When you say free form, you have to remember what that really means. You were free to form a mood to make it. All right, I always say, you know how you know what spaghetti sauce is made out of. Everybody can make spaghetti sauce, but some people
are artists.
They make it better than others. It's the same ingredients, but the way they mix it up and what they put in the pot makes their better than anybody else. And that's what the disc jockeys were. They knew the music, and somehow they could put it together based on either what was happening in the world, what the people were requesting, how they were feeling, the weather, whatever it was, they could make a show out of it. And you would come in maybe an hour before your shift, and you would go through the music library. And the jock before you would pull out all the songs that he played in case you hadn't been listening, and he would have initialed the cut that he played. So you did a little bit of a separation. You didn't want to play the same song.
Now that's a shocker.
Yes.
You didn't want to play the same song.
You didn't want to play the same song, but even if you did, it was no big deal. There was a reason for it. It was the song to play.
If you felt it, you felt it.
Yes. And that was
because the station had hits, but it wasn't as if management said you have to play this and that and that.
No, they expected you to know, to feel it, even if it was an artificial way you were getting to that point. They didn't care. Whatever it took for you to get to the point where...
That's my problem with XPN right now.
Yeah.
Because, they're a good station in some ways, but geez, could you lighten up on the playlist?
I know.
I don't want to hear the same songs every day.
I know. Trust the
audience. And I don't even like
audience.
those songs.
Trust the audience, right?
Yeah. They're just expect them to be smart.
Right.
As opposed to stupid.
Right. You've been doing this your whole life. The people that work there have done this their whole lives. They know what they're doing. Let them do it. Especially when you do XPN, you don't even have the commercial restraints.
Yeah, it's just some guy on top thinking, well, the audience to gain, for us to do fundraising. They have ideas about what the station ought to be.
They want to be contenders.
Yeah.
So they do want to stick to some sort of a format, and in doing so, they start to rule out music. And once you start to rule out music,
you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
There you go.
And instead of the highest common denominator, it's the stupidest common denominator. It's not really,
I mean, it's still better than the others.
Yeah, but it becomes very relative.
Right. And then when you hear the same crazy song out of the blue twice in a row, 2 days in a row, it takes the magic away.
Well, not only on XPN, you never hear anything ever that would actually challenge you.
Well,
you say, well, that's different.
Right.
It's they don't play anything out there.
They should be They shouldn't be reactive. They should be leading.
Yeah.
But they're afraid. Look, because of the dollars that come from the people, they want to do what the people want. They want to be so mass appeal or whatever.
But why does it have to be so rigidly formatted? I think it doesn't have to be. I think you can have those big numbers and you can still give them new experiences. Something outside.
I agree. I agree. I think that job is gone too. I don't think that job exists anymore. Unless you do it by yourself on an internet station, and you have 4 listeners. But if you're on commercial radio, you can't there's no way that you can, unless you do a specific show, like you do a cover show and you play covers, or you do a show about a specific artist and you
Well, where's
you go
that show?
deep.
Where's that station?
I wish they would let me do one.
Yeah. When did you start in radio?
79, I believe it was.
So it's sort of past the point where...
Well, it was the tail end.
Yeah.
When I was at MMR, well, I started at WCAU FM, and that was Fascinating Rhythm, and that was the disco era.
Okay.
But my heart was in rock radio. So a year after I started there, I got a job at WMMR. That was my dream.
Yeah.
And the radio station at that point was still allowing the jocks to pick their own music.
Oh.
But let's say I got hired on a Tuesday. The week after, they came in with a shot clock, and they call it a hot clock, shot clock, whatever it is, where you have to play a certain amount of songs in a certain amount of time.
It became just a job.
Yeah. Well, what happened was that the program director was tired of being fired every time the ratings went down. So he employed a guy called a consultant. And the consultant would come in, and it could be you, it could be me, and say you liked Foreigner.
I'm not smart enough to be a consultant.
You are.
Because they know everything.
They don't know anything, but they pretended they did. They came in and they said, here's what you have to play. And the program director said, well, if the ratings go down, I won't get fired. I'll fire the consultant and I'll buy myself 6 more months.
Smart.
And I think that's what happened.
So you also did classic rock radio.
Did classic rock radio before it was called that, yes.
Yeah.
And then WYSP.
And this was classic rock radio before it became,
Yes.
the very, very tight playlist.
Yes. It was classic rock radio.
When classic rock started, it could be wide.
Yes, but then they started doing crazy things like researching the Doors. Like you could play 5 to 1, but you couldn't play Backdoor Man.
Yeah. Well, see, what it became was just the same songs over and over again.
Right.
And if you're talking Hendrix, it was just 3 Hendrix songs, not the amazing Electric Ladyland album.
You should be able to close your eyes and just put the needle on the record and play any of those songs. Everybody knew every word to every one of those songs. Who gets to choose which one should be played and which one shouldn't?
And
it was crazy.
I'll never understand it.
I will never understand
because
it.
every classic rock station is that way, where it's a 4-hour rotation of the same songs.
Yes, a lot of Bad Company and no Grateful Dead. You tell me.
Well, it's not just. It's just the same.
Yes.
4-hour rotation.
Yes.
And how do they maintain an audience?
I don't know.
I mean,
well, the classic rock audience, they don't like any surprises. But if you do surprise them with one song an hour that they never heard before, you could change your whole image. You play one song out of that rotation, they're talking about it.
Why can't some competitor come in and play wider? Why aren't people more sick of it?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm with you on that. I thought that once we would get XM or Sirius Radio, that's what we would get, but we didn't get that.
Yeah, so XM, these...
We got more of the same. It's like if you like a
same.
woman singer-songwriter, here's 6 that sound just like her.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Is this the evil consultants, or is this democracy at work?
It's somewhere in between. I think it's the person who's afraid to take the chance. Just like the publishing business and the movie business, if it isn't already out there, they're afraid to invent it. So they just see what is successful and try to copy it.
So I've worked in a news register for 30 years.
Okay.
And I had an opportunity to start my own radio show on the local college station a few years ago.
So you can play what you want.
Yeah, right. It's just totally anything. And I have a deep love for all kinds of music. And I was naive when I started there, so I went to this meeting with the students. And of course, these are Princeton University students, 20 years old. And the guy said to me, "In no circumstance should you ever play anything by Jimi Hendrix. Do you understand what I'm saying?" And I said, "No." And he said, but I can read into he thinks that Jimi Hendrix is the same 3 Hendrix songs that classic rock plays.
Right.
Because he never listened to Electric Ladyland.
Because it was never exposed.
And you see, so from the other direction, the people who are actually free to do anything they want, because they're lunkhead college students, they try to impose their own idea of what music is and what it isn't.
Right.
And they think music
we have to break this
is alternative rock.
We have to break this cycle.
Play anything, be expansive. You can do it.
Because you remember the first time you heard that song, that crazy song that you had never heard before. You can remember where you were. It was life-changing.
Do you have an original?
That's all you really have to know. And that's how you know that you're right.
And it doesn't have to be rock. I mean, it can be jazz, it can be Broadway, it can be classical.
Yes. Reggae. It could be anything. Because you know what? You have to wait for someone to ask you to write your memoir. Did you know that?
Bruce Springsteen saw.
No. No, but wait. You don't know what happened. I wanted to release it on Black Friday, okay? And of course, when you're up against a deadline, something always goes wrong. So here I am in my house trying to figure out how to transfer my files to make it work. Because I thought you could only do an ebook, but then I found out you could do a soft cover too. So I'm trying to get it so the pictures aren't bleeding into the margins and the whole thing. And I'm trying to figure it out, and I want to get it out by Black Friday, and I never go over it to make sure that I've dotted the I's and crossed the T's, and for spelling errors. Luckily, it's only printed as it's ordered. So I think
so it's self-correcting.
like 60 of them went out with all these typos, and I had to literally stop the press and go back in and change it all and then put it.
You did it all yourself?
I did it all myself.
Oh, wow.
And then when the Kindle version, I screwed that up too. For some reason, all the pictures were upside down.
Upside down?
The first 50 people.
I guess this is for the Australian market.
The first 50 people that got it. Oh, and in the first version, there was nothing on the back. I know, I really messed up in every way possible that you could possibly mess up. I messed up, but luckily, you could stop the presses and fix it, and then I offered those people refunds or new books or whatever. It's amazing that I've ever sold any books at all. I mean, really. When I look at real books, I have to laugh.
So you didn't do this?
No, I just did that. But you have to be asked to write your memoir, and my circumstances were very different because I'm the least famous person in my life.
This is your memoir?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
I am the least famous person in my life, so no one would have ever asked me to write my memoir. But I have great stories.
So you took the initiative?
Yes. I did it myself.
Nothing wrong with that.
No. Unless you don't have an editor and you put it out with typos. And then I started getting emails from people.
I'd read it. I'm intrigued. I don't know too many people
See that?
publish their own book.
I did, and I did
Everything.
I did it my
That's
way.
it.
My own photos. This is my friend, well, the one that took all the pictures gave them to me for free. He didn't charge me anything, and I had all these photos. This was a photo I had, and my friend used to be the airbrusher for all the Nautica ads, and he airbrushed this whole thing to make it look, like it looks.
So were you naked or?
I was naked, but
Okay.
I wasn't really naked, but my arm was up in my hair, and this was not a Warren Zevon album, but we thought we ought to put one in there. And then we airbrushed all the other stuff out, so one arm's from one picture, one arm's from the other. And the rest of the pictures they're not, they're for real. But I've never before seen pictures so if you're like a Warren Zevon fan, or if you're a Bruce Springsteen fan, there's lots of stories about him in here. And if you're a Grateful Dead fan, but there's funny pictures in here.
I used to get these Springsteen stories, because he's a local guy, and then people like to say that when he got really big, he became aloof. But I never believed that because, he gets bothered by a lot of people.
He wasn't, it's not that he was aloof, but he's one of those guys who, unless he's on stage, he really doesn't have much of a personality. Through the years, he's become almost too talkative, and he's almost too much. It's like if if he starts on one of his rants, you look for the door because you're going to be there for an hour. Because he started to do in his answers to interview questions what he does with his concerts. He goes on and on. But back in the day, he could not complete a sentence. He was really bad at social skills.
It was hard to figure out because he's obviously a sophisticated guy. He reads literature
Well,
and he bases his work upon literature.
Yeah.
And yet, he sort of, is he acting the part of being inarticulate?
No, he just couldn't transfer how he felt on stage to how he. Who else
So
used
put him
to
on
be like
four.
that? Steve Martin.
Actually, since we use
Steve Martin off stage used to be like the most quiet, nerdy little
But he was a philosophy major.
Yeah, but I mean, these guys off stage
Yeah.
just
So
don't.
you wanna
They have
just
to be
take this-
performing. in order-
No, Bob Dylan's
Bob Dylan's the same way.
Yeah.
I was just going to mention Bob
But
Dylan.
he's utterly brilliant as a poet, but not necessarily.
But if you're
as a
sitting at
thinker.
dinner with him, like, or if you walked in, you would think. In fact, he was picked up once as a homeless guy
Okay.
because he
They
was.
just thought he was. Did he at one point just get badly into drugs, or is he somewhat quasi-mentally ill? Because he went through a long
Dylan?
period where he was just so out of it. I know a guy who met him, who
I
saw
don't think
him
it was
at an
drugs.
awards thing,
I don't
and he
think
said
it
that
was
the guy
drugs.
was a zombie.
I don't think it was drugs. I just think he's always just been such a recluse and so inward and so. I just don't think he can assimilate into the normal.
He's just differently minded.
Can I just get this in front and then go this way with it? Come in, thank you,
Yeah,
sorry.
with
I just don't
radio.
think he can do that. I just don't think he can assimilate because he's such a
So
genius
then you can just,
that I don't think
walk
it's like
over
they
to
can't
this
make
seat.
toast. You know
Okay.
what I mean? They can write these songs and sit.
His brain is compartmentalized.
Yeah, yeah. And they can't really do anything but that. Some people are like that.
Well, we often assume just because a person is musically brilliant that they're brilliant in all spheres,
No.
and they might be quite naive in other spheres.
Yeah, and they're just not socially adept at anything. You see that they can't keep a relationship. They're usually
Well, also
estranged from their
they
children.
get tempted.
Well,
I always thought the reason why
yeah.
they get into like bad drugs, alcohol, is that when you don't have a day job.
Right, you've never had a job, right?
Yeah,
right.
I mean, a lot of these people,
Right.
your musical heroes, have
Right.
never had a job.
Right, but luckily they're not all
We're gonna do one
addicts.
more
So they have
during that 6
have
minutes.
done.
They're probably addictive personalities to begin with, and when you've got nothing to do but all day
right,
but sit around.
Right. But there are people that have never had other jobs, and Bruce is one of them. Tommy Stinson, do you know Tommy Stinson, bass player?
Replacements.
Yeah,
Like this one?
he's another. I know him personally.
I used to have like a musical comedy act,
yeah, okay.
and one of my songs, I did very short songs. I said, okay, we do a little tribute song now, in Jersey's own Bruce Springsteen. And we have a little working intro. Well, I'm a working man who's never had a job. Oh.
Right.
And always got a big reaction.
Right. He's a poor man who's a millionaire.
Right, because he's always singing
Right.
like the working man.
Right, right.
You never
right.
even worked at gas
He's
station.
never
dude.
worked really hard trying to get his
Yeah,
hands clean.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
never
Oh,
happened.
Oh, he's a farm out
Right,
there. Right,
that's right.
Okay, you have a farm.
Hey, Anita Gevinson.
Gevinson.
Gevinson, who I describe as
Is
the
it
sex
Gevinson?
kitten
How
of
do you
the
pronounce
airwaves.
Gevinson, like Levinson with a G.
Okay,
Okay.
Gevinson. A nice, what do you say, Jewish girl from Levittown? used to do it.
That you can say.
Gevinson, who I described as the sex kitten of the
There you go.
airwaves. Remember, it's the high times in Philly, and I wrote up, you dirty, nasty whore.
You dirty, nasty whore.
Now, are British men circumcised or uncircumcised?
Some British men are, but Greek men are not.
Oh, you did Greeks too. Oh, you're like the United Nations,
I
Entered
would,
your-
yes,
the pleasure palace. That's beautiful.
United Nations, yes. Bring us your tired,
But you
your
don't-
poor.
Do you like women?
I had never hooked up with a woman except in college because it was required.
You have something in common with Adam.
But I have everyone's bisexual theory, which we can discuss, but it might make you a little uncomfortable.
The book, well, you want us to promote the book, though. When did the book first come out, in 2009 or 8?
12.
How come this article in the Philly magazine from 2008?
Well, okay, because Jonathan Valania wanted to write my book
Kurt,
with
He
me.
needs levels on you.
We need levels on me.
And I was,
Get it right, dude.
I didn't think I could write a book.
I want my voice louder than
You know,
everyone
I
else.
had to have some special skills.
Louder.
So he started writing the book for me,
Mhm.
and he made me sound. Did you ever watch Entourage?
Yeah.
Well, he made me sound like Turtle from Entourage.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay? And so
Would
I.
he tape record a conversation with you and then he'd write?
Yes. And it was so not me that I had to say to him, listen, we can't do this. So he went to Philly Mag behind my back, and remember they used to have that other editor, the guy, Steve somebody, Levy somebody.
Okay. Oh, Steve, yeah, I do remember that name. for some reason.
Levy's, all right, so I thought that you had to actually have a book deal to be excerpt from a book,
Right.
but he excerpted a chapter from a book that hadn't been written.
Don't they have like legal advice in Philly magazine? We got away with it, obviously.
And I took the money so I could pay Valania to go away.
Right, okay.
So then 3 years later,
We should get this on that part.
I wrote my own book.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this was, so there's nothing that.
This was like an aborted attempt at
Yes.
of what finally came.
Yes, that I wrote every word myself.
Every typo.
Every typo, every
upside down exclamation
yes,
mark.
every misspelling,
Every upside down
bad grammar.
photo.
Yes, was my own
Bob
doing.
Dylan asked you for a favor, and he was.
No, Bob Dylan was the one who told me to go back to Philly, and that's when my career really took off.
Oh, when I was listening to the YouTube thing, I don't remember I never got whatever he said.
Right, Bob Dylan was the one. Yeah, most of my stories.
You need an interpreter to understand Bob Dylan.
Well, Bob Dylan and I, what happened was Bob Dylan came to a Bruce Springsteen concert. Jim Keltner brought it.
Only interested in harmonica. I got excited when he started playing that.
Yes.
I'm so researched.
Wow, you really are. And he was sitting in my seat, so I had to sit next to him. So he asked me to take him backstage.
But even though you were somewhat famous in your own right, you still were kind of an awe.
Oh my God, yeah, it was Bob
Still,
Dylan.
you were Philadelphia DJ.
Yeah,
It's a big market.
but it was Bob
Iconic.
Dylan.
Bob Dylan's one of those famous people.
Yes, I mean, come on, when Bob Dylan's sitting next to you at a Bruce Springsteen show, I mean,
It's
come
somewhat
on.
iconic, right?
Yeah, and then he asked you to take, so I took him back, and the bodyguard from
He said, wait 20 minutes.
you have to wait 20 minutes. So I had 20 minutes alone
So
with
they
Bob.
finally meet, and they made a movie of it. It's called Dumb and Dumberer.
It's called, I have nothing to say and I don't either. How about that? Yeah, I guess, yeah.
The two are,
Yeah, right, yeah, one would look down at the floor and the other would shuffle his feet. So I had 20 minutes with Bob and I thought, what do you do if you have 20 minutes alone with Bob?
Do it.
You ask
Don't
him
do it.
advice, you ask
Guys,
him,
Chris is, I'm so sorry.
no.
Chris is gonna be in here playing
To start.
to start, and you three are all gonna be sitting here behind him, just listening.
Doing
Okay.
whatever we're doing.
Then I'm gonna cut to the intro, and we're just gonna do some real quick switch with the mics and the mic stand.
Okay.
And he'll be sitting next to Anita,
Okay,
right?
all right.
Then I'm gonna cut to that longer video, the interview you did in California,
Mhm.
and we're gonna get Chris out, and you
Gotcha.
can do the full Anita interview.
Okay. No, I knew Jackson when he had that woman that he dated, that he married, that had kids with him.
Oh, you were
Yeah, he got arrested for beating up the actress.
Yeah, but I think
That's what
she
we're just
beat
talking
him
about.
up. I
The other way
really,
around,
I
Carol
think
Hansen-
I totally think she did, because,
She's very aggressive and she's trying
and
to come
he
off.
would not, just knowing him, that's not
It
him.
wasn't his personality.
That's not him.
So maybe she's mean too when we make up lies.
Well, what happened was when she grew up with his poster on her wall,
Oh.
and she was obsessed with him.
Oh, I got it.
He was a pretty boy.
Yes.
But
she-
he was much older. He was like 20 years
Yes,
older, right?
so he goes on tour for that, running
So
on
she has
empty
to for a
tour.
childhood fantasy.
And they go to Australia, and he meets this woman named Lynn. And he falls in love with her and brings her back to the States. And they go to play Chicago, where Daryl's from. And Daryl goes to the show with the express thing she's gonna meet him. When she gets there and she gets backstage, she sees this other girl, and she says to herself, okay, not now, but someday. And she was like a stalker. And she waited for that opportunity, and when JFK Jr. dumped her, she went running to
She was a
Jackson.
movie star by that time.
Yes,
Right,
she was a movie star by that time.
So you met Joni Mitchell.
Yes.
I'm a Joni Mitchell. I mean, like I worship at
Me
that ground.
too, me
But
too.
what's she like in person?
Joni Mitchell in person is like the coolest woman that ever lived.
Oh,
Except
I am so glad to hear that.
she and Patti Smith are the two coolest women
Really?
I've ever met in my life.
From New
Yes.
Jersey.
I mean, first of all, neither of them care about the physical.
Yeah.
All right, they're just cooler than cool. Joni dresses like a man, smoking a cigarette. She doesn't care. She comes over for her interview, and we're going to interview her at this radio station in Los Angeles. And I wait outside for her, and I'm like, "Can I carry your guitar up?" And she goes, "Yes, please," because as a child I had scoliosis. We get in the
But she also had polio, right?
well, yeah, no, but that was it.
Okay.
That was the scoliosis. So we get in the elevator, and she gets out first, and her manager turns to me and says, "She's never told me that." So I felt like, ooh. So she comes into our radio station, and we had a room that was like a quarter of this size, but it had the best acoustics ever. So I sit at her feet, and she starts singing "Just Like This
Patti
Train."
Smith or
Joni. Do you know that? Joni Mitchell song, Just Like This Train?
I have to hear the melody.
I'm always running behind the times, just
What
like
album
this
is it?
train.
What years?
Early.
Okay.
All right, anyway, I'm sitting at her feet and I start to cry.
Uh-oh.
So, goes to commercial break and she leans down and she goes, don't do that. And I go, okay, Joni Mitchell, I won't cry. She goes, I don't want to make anybody cry. I'm like, okay.
She's seen that before, though.
Yeah.
Because she's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, but she is the coolest. She and Patti Smith are the two coolest women I've ever met in
That's
my
neat.
life. Yeah, yeah. I have pictures with both of them. They like said, well, we don't take photos, and I begged Joni for a photo, and she took one with me, and then she took two with me, and then I said to Patty, yeah, but I'm from Philly, and she goes, okay, I'll take a picture with you. So I have photos with them. Yeah, I couldn't believe I got to meet them. I went to more Patti Smith shows than I probably than, except for Warren and Bruce, I've been to more Patti Smith shows.
I saw her in '76, first tour.
Wow.
She came to Princeton.
Anyway, you said that Billy Squier was uptight. Everybody wants you.
Billy Squier was the opposite of what you would think. Like, you saw those videos.
From the 80s, MTV.
It, you know, when you met Billy Squier,
Big hair.
you thought you were going to, like, the sex planet. You know, you thought he was going to transport you to Sex World, and it was going to be, like, the most outrageous, because I mean, you
He's a rock and roll.
Oh, he used to crawl on the floor of those videos, and he looked like he was just gonna be like the best lover you ever had. And I don't know if he was just having a bad night, but it was the opposite of that. He was he was fixated on. I guess he couldn't perform because he was on some drug or
You
something.
couldn't seal the deal.
So he was only fixated on what he could do for you. So, you know, it's the old adage of too much of anything is no good.
Gotcha. Can wear you out.
You know, it's like I wanted to give him the tap.
Stop.
And I was like, seriously,
It's not
dude.
made out of rubber.
Yeah.
Now we have to go to.
Your 3-minute single is over.
Now you say that Daryl Hall was a bit kinky.
Daryl Hall is my 50 Shades of Grey lover. Daryl Hall was the biggest surprise of my life, and he was the gift that kept on giving.
Chlamydia?
No. Daryl Hall he was as clean as an Acme chicken, seriously.
Okay.
Daryl Hall did no drugs, and he was just the most creative lover that I'd ever met. You could totally trust him because he was not whacked out on anything, and he wanted to do the craziest, most insane stuff, and you know, who am I not to go along? And no, he really was crazy.
Was John Oates waiting like under the bed?
No, John Oates they did not hang out off stage.
Oh,
Were
they
you
do.
were you there when Mark the Shark was at MMR?
Yes,
My neighbor Jill was married to Mark the Shark.
you're kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I probably didn't know Mark when he got married. I probably knew him when he was young. But I remember when he passed away that there was
Yeah.
family involved, and
Yeah.
that
And
was
that's
sad.
Jill, and that's Jill.
That
And
was
he has
really
she's
sad.
got this garage
And
filled
now,
with...
Yeah,
Nils Lofgren.
I love Mark. Well, Nils Lofgren was not with Bruce Springsteen when I met him, but Nils was like the white Jimi Hendrix. He really could play guitar, and what really impressed me about Nils is that I saw him one night at Stars on South Street in Philadelphia, and he was playing guitar, and he walked to the side of the stage so that he was out of view from the crowd, and as he was playing, he somehow managed to relieve himself in a trash can. And that was so impressive to me that he didn't have to stop playing to do it.
Multitasking.
Yes.
So this is like
We've
the
done that on
story
this
of a guy walks into a bar and he goes, look, I was really messed up last night and I can't figure out where I was, but I remember they had golden toilets. And the bartender says, look, we don't have golden toilets, but Joe, I found the guy that peed in your tuba.
True story.
Very, very much the same.
Now, some deadhead told me that Bob Weir, that was bisexual. Is he bisexual?
There was nothing that made me think that, although I think everyone is bisexual, but that's just me. But no, Bob was extremely cute back in those days. He was
Preppy.
cute, yeah, very cute, preppy.
He was younger than the rest of Grave.
Yes, and he didn't seem like a Deadhead at all. I couldn't, because I had never had any interest in the Grateful Dead, and I never knew anything about them. So when I met him in Boston, it was because I had to interview him. And when he showed up in my studio, I was expecting the guy, Mr. Natural, okay, Keep on Trucking guy. And instead, I got this adorable, preppy guy who was totally flirting with me on the air. And without even thinking what it would be like to enter the world of the Grateful Dead, I was like full on, yes, whatever you want, I'll do. So he invited me to a Dead show, and I drove to Providence, Rhode Island with a friend just to see the show, and couldn't believe that the Deadheads chased us down the hall at the end of the show, banged on our hotel room door all night long. It was insane, and just traveling with that circus of freaks was too much for me. As sweet as Bob was, and as cute as he was, and as lovely as the whole thing was, I could not wait to get out of there because Rock Scully was so insane. And
Pigpen was dead by then, right?
yes,
He
Pigpen
died
was
in
dead.
73.
Yeah, this was when it was Brent Midland.
Midland.
Yeah. But I was in the hotel room, I was sitting up in the bed when Jerry Garcia walked in and just didn't even notice I was there. Or if he
10 minutes.
didn't care, and then he and Bob had this running conversation about the most mundane things that you would never, ever
I think
imagine.
they're talking about music.
Right, but it's so ridiculous, okay? And then Bob literally, all night long, just wallowing in his own self-pity about how he never gets any credit, and how on the album, Grateful Dead Go to Heaven, his song was called Feel Like a Number, and they had miswrote it. I wrote it as Feels Like a Number, or vice versa, and I encouraged him to bring this up with Jerry, that he should speak up for himself.
Right. Don't be a little boy and stop whining.
And I mean, I've known him 20 minutes, and I'm doing, and
And he needed you to tell him this. Yeah.
this is what he needed, for me to tell him this.
I have one question.
Yes.
What rock star did you meet that you wanted to be with but couldn't? Did you ever beg anyone? I mean, just overcome with awe and idolatry.
Let's see. I wouldn't have minded having a night with Bruce. I never had a night with Bruce. I wouldn't have minded that at all, because I had a feeling that.
Well, you don't have to really talk. You know?
Right, and I had a feeling that it would go on as long as one of his concerts.
It's a lot of energy.
Right, so that was a little bit, the fact that I never appealed to him was a little bit upsetting. But no, there really wasn't anyone
Mick
else.
Jagger.
Robbie Robertson, I used to really, I met him
Of the
through Gary
band.
Busey, yeah, of the band. And
Is he a nice guy?
Gary Busey was a nice guy.
Robertson.
Robertson I never really got to know very well, but he seemed to be a very,
Because in retrospect, it was an
Proper
odd
gentleman.
band where they all had lots of drug problems. I don't know if he did, but he had the end of the thing just to get away from all that. And it wasn't just that Richard Manuel was this drop-dead alcoholic, but
right.
Levon Helm hated his guts.
Right,
And Levon was into heroin.
well, any band is gonna have that. You're gonna have lead singer syndrome, and then you're gonna have,
But plus the
Self-destruction
drugs.
syndrome,
I mean,
band.
these heavy drugs.
yeah, a lot of them were into
I
heavy
mean,
drugs.
Danko died early.
Yes, no, Danko didn't die early. It was,
He died of cancer, I just
No, Danko, yeah,
No.
but he was into cocaine and he died of like a heart
yeah,
condition.
but you have
at
to
age,
remember
you know.
though, even back in those days, we would sit around debating with our doctors and lawyers whether or not cocaine was addictive. I mean, really.
It does bad things to you in the long run, and you die early.
But what happened was that the cocaine.
Freud learned the whole.
Well, the cocaine that we were doing
Was it
ceased
Peter?
to exist, and then it just got like street stuff. So
Oh.
where you didn't know what you were doing, but cocaine in its pure form, there was nothing bad you could say about it.
Right.
But then they started cutting it with stuff, and then people started dying from it, and then it was like, oof.
Did Frank Rizzo and Elk ever try to get you guys? At all?
Frank Rizzo and I only met that one time, but Mayor Good and I developed quite a relationship because he was on my show once a month for over a
When he
year.
was mayor?
Yes,
After the MoveOn.org?
before move.
That was a disaster.
That was a disaster, but he was on my show, and we became kind of friendly, and he invited me up to his office, but I brought my dad just in case he had other.
He had a fair, I heard he had problems, he had a wandering eye.
He did, that's why I was trying to shut that down, so I brought my dad with me.
For safety.
And there I was in the mayor's office, he let me sit at his desk and take pictures, and yeah, he used to like it, like it, he told me when I dressed up. I like it when you dress up. But I never let it get any further than that. I had a few sports,
On the flyers.
never a hockey player,
What?
please, but NFL, NBA,
Steve Carlton, no.
no, Dennis Eckersley,
Oh, yeah.
thank
oh.
you, Doug Collins, thank you.
Really? Was
Yes.
Doug married at the time?
No, he was separated that week.
That week.
No, he was separated, but it didn't last long, but yeah, and OKC manager, Scott Brooks,
Oh, Scott Brooks, he played, yeah, Scott Brooks.
when he was a Sixer.
Right. Oh, he was a good guard, he was a shooting
He
guard.
was very good, yeah.
Yes.
And I always wanted Mo Cheeks, but I never got it.
Charles Barkley, no.
No, but I did a great interview with him.
Because Charles would sleep with anyone, I thought. Not saying he wouldn't
No,
attack,
no.
I heard he was pretty wild though. Charles Barkley gets caught with ugly prostitutes. I mean, he just out of control.
Charles got married early on, and so when he was in Philly, he was he had to go out of state.
To go crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard stories of my brothers in sports
Yeah.
media. I mean, he's getting blowjobs in Phoenix by a
Yeah,
prostitute while he's driving.
yeah.
gets him up
Well,
and down.
that's when he got caught. He's backed it off, but he's remained true to his wife and his daughter. But
But he parties on the
he
side.
partied. He used to. He doesn't do it anymore, but he used to.
Well, he spent gambled a lot too.
I think he was more of a gambler than he was a sexaholic. I think he was a
Michael Jordan, he liked to do.
Jordan was one of the most beautiful men I had ever seen.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I never got close to him.
Great
I never was, it was whoever, I never was like on a mission. I
But
just
you
like,
met people.
I would just meet people.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, kind of in that world too. It's like, why not? If they're interested, go for it. If they're interested, you're interested. Why not? Why not?
Why not?
Right.
Yeah.
You only live once.
All right, 5 minutes to showtime.
Okay, this is exciting.
Well, thanks for coming.
No, this is great. So I
Okay, the
just
show's
sit
over, let's
here?
go.
So I just sit right
Yeah,
here?
hang out, and Chris is gonna sing,
Okay.
then he's gonna sit next to you, I'm gonna take his mic off, and I'm gonna connect your
Right,
lab.
it is. It's
What happened to
like
the air
you're-
conditioning?
All right, well,
I'm gonna say
Yeah.
go.
So-
Okay.
I'd like this back to Minnesota, like you're
Oh, my
the rehab.
God.
See, that's something I would do.
oh, especially back then, and I still believe it, that rehab is bullshit.
Yeah. Well, if it helps, it helps. But yeah, I went one time. A
Actually,
friend of
Julie's
mine.
gonna cue you. I'm gonna have
A
Julie
friend of mine who
on
was
the
going
radio.
this in the '80s. He was called NA. And I was curious what NA, what it was all about.
Right.
So he asked me to come to show support. Some of those people should be on. They were losers.
Well, and they were
idiots.
transferring addictions. They got the coffee cup in one
Yeah.
hand, the cigarette in the other.
Yeah.
They're just transferring addictions. They're not.
Well, it's still better than waking up in a
Yeah,
dumpster with a
but
dog.
it's still. But it's still.
Who amongst us has
Don't knock it till you try it, man.
But that's the funny. I know
Is the dog cute?
that was the most incontrovertible thing, though. I know that they had to applaud people for coming, but they would say these horrible things like, and everyone would applaud. Afterwards,
Right.
yay!
It was insanity.
It's
But he
the combination of him being ill-equipped and having them at the same time. Right.
So he had all this talent, but he couldn't manage it.
And
He was
the saddest
terrible
thing is,
alcoholic.
but the saddest thing is, and
keeping this
you've
on.
got to know from the list of people, the friends that he had. I mean,
He fatigued them all, though.
But he did. But they wanted to be with him. There was something about him that was just so great.
Well, the werewolves of London.
But I mean, it was I mean, there was something about being around him that was so exciting that people, like your Hunter S. Thompsons
Right,
and everybody, that could choose. They could be friends with anybody.
Now, before he was a known guy, there was this radio concert with Jackson Brown.
Right.
And he kept doing, I'm going to do a song now by
Right.
Warren Zevon.
Right.
Warren is so, and he kept doing, it was like he was so cool
Because when
he
you met him
he
back
so
in the day,
loved
yes.
Warren Zevon.
Well, everyone who met him loved him. Everybody, men, women. I mean,
They
my
wanted
parents.
to suck in his charisma, his fun.
There was,
everyone.
he was one of those guys.
Right.
He was like a Belushi. But
Right.
you know what I mean.
A
It was
walking disaster, but fun.
so much fun. I mean, things were more exciting when he
Right.
was around.
He
Whether
made
you,
things happen.
whether you were Jackson Brown or Bruce Springsteen, you wanted to hang with Warren. It was insane.
But you said in the book, you were spending days, sometimes, you went from column A, you said, from going out all the time to column B, but you still didn't mind that? You would just watch movies all night and all that?
Well,
Monitor on?
the love you felt was so intense when he loved you.
Otherwise.
It was so amazing.
So there was a high there, you got, people got.
Was he drinking a lot in those days?
Yeah, he really. But when he,
The way he drank vodka, I can't believe, I couldn't live a
Right.
day the way he did.
I couldn't fathom it. I was so in the dark about it. I mean,
He kept the secret from you? Or-
yeah.
He would go off in the bathroom.
So you're living with him, but he's keeping the
Did you not
secret
do the
from you.
radio?
You'd go off in the bathroom and then.
You couldn't hear the
do
radio?
his-
But
shut
wouldn't
it
he be
down.
visibly intoxicated?
No.
That's a real alcoholic, though.
He was just medicated. You're just like,
That's what he
like shooting up.
needed. Yeah, that's what he needed to maintain his persona. He couldn't. There'd be a line finally, but like I would come home from
It would
work.
break eventually,
Yeah,
everything breaks.
yeah. I would come home from work and he wanted to play me a new song that he wrote, and it was a Dylan song that he had rewritten.
Yeah.
And I said, honey, that's Bob Dylan's To Serve Somebody. No, it's not. No, it is.
I can imagine his voice. You gotta serve somebody.
Right.
That's a
And I
terrible
said, no,
noise.
and that was when it would
You
get
gonna be able to
like,
hear that on the
scary,
air?
because he was a blackout drummer, so he never remembered any of the stuff he did. I would get a phone call from a clothing store on Walnut Street, and they'd say,
I would never
Warren has
use
to
that.
come down and pick up the $2,000 worth of suits that
He left.
and he would be down there. He would have gotten them all tailored and all chalked up and everything, and he had no recollection.
Well, what years were?
He lived here in '82.
I've been living
That's fairly early.
Yeah.
a little bit now.
Career.
Silver dreams and bitter smiles. It paints a picture of a thing gone wild. Whole emotion. Oh, and all that crashes. Hold on to it. Level man. Dream rain. In a worn out brain. Don't lose nothing. Level man. Can't you hear? Broken band playing. Hold on to it. Level man. Dream brain. In a worn out brain.
I just forgot your name.
My name's Chris.
Don't remember his name. It's not worth knowing.
Beerman.
Yeah, Adam.
Adam.
This is Breathing with Beerman. We're having such a great conversation with Anita Gevinson. Did I say your name right?
Gevinson.
Gevinson. Her new
You're
book.
2 for 2.
Her new, you turned me on a radio.
I think of it as O for O.
My wild rock and roll life. Or whenever you're asking you anything. So why are you here? Who told you to be here?
I wandered in and I saw the door open and was
I like the
told-
first story better.
I
Stick to
was
that.
told that you guys do singer-songwriter.
No, he paid the money. And
I
now
paid
he's
the
on
money and now I'm here.
My forehead's so high. You're telling me, but what kind of accent do you have there?
It's New Jersey, South Brunswick, but I've been around
Oh, okay.
the globe.
He's been drinking.
I picked up things along the way.
Your voice is really great, but we're just so involved in this conversation. Right now.
I was too. I think it's fascinating. Everybody you
You
mentioned.
didn't
I
sleep with
love.
Warren Zevon or
They've-
Billy Squire or Roger Glover of
You
Deep
didn't.
Purple.
Been idols.
I
to me.
did, you didn't.
No, but I feel like I
Bob
am
Ware?
because I
You
listen
still
to
can.
music.
Daryl Hall's around.
Can I touch you? Oh.
They're all around. That's what's so great about it. They're still all around.
Oh, your name is Chris Bedding or Bedling?
Belding.
Belding. So Chris, what kind of music what would you call it? You're a BJ. You're a DJ. You're.
I'd say it was folky. It was.
I think it's death metal.
I think he has a great voice.
Me too. I love the chords. I sounded great.
Thank you, thank you. I've been playing for a while.
Original, all originals.
All original, yeah. I picked up the guitar in college and just kept on learning chords.
And who are your influences?
Warren Zevon, Bob
Oh, my
Dylan.
This is a
You
third.
you name it. Everybody you mentioned, pretty much on the list. I don't think
This is the
anybody in
closest-
music can't deny that. You know, they are a influence
great.
of every musician, really.
Time out. But are we going to video?
Welcome to Cable Access TV.
Yeah. You were not a nurturing person per se with the rehab
I
crowd.
didn't believe in rehab. I thought, rehab was for quitters. I didn't
What's
understand.
that? Rehab? No, no, no.
Yeah, that's right. They tried to make me go to rehab, and I say no, no, no. And I just didn't think that a person who had been drinking 2/5 of vodka since he'd been 12 years old could sit around for 2 weeks and sing Kumbaya and then assimilate back into
Oh,
public
that's what you
life.
saw at rehab. You thought it was kind of fakery.
I
or
didn't
corny.
get it. I didn't understand it. However, it did work for a lot of people. It does work for a lot of people, and I probably should have stuck it out and learned what it was like to be an Alcoholics Anonymous and everything, but I just wasn't.
You said, look,
I wasn't
got this-
able to
Why
do
if
it.
PA gave you a front row pass to this glamorous life, so to speak, and why why go in the stop and the hold it lane, so to speak, with someone who's a drunk? I would possibly, I'm shallow.
Were you going there to help Warren, or did
Yes.
so you had no
Yes.
problem yourself?
But then she
It wasn't
said,
my addiction, it was his addiction.
but then what did you say? Tell the audience what you decided. Who was
Well,
who
we got to
depended
rehab, and Warren was the big star at rehab, and there was nothing
in
anonymous.
Minnesota, in Drury,
Yes,
Minnesota.
in Minnesota, at St.
So we
Mary's
went out to a
Hospital.
bar and
No, but there was nothing anonymous about his alcoholism. Everybody knew who he was, and everyone was waiting for me to arrive. And because when I got the call that I had to go as the codependent, I could not believe it. So I went, and I walked in, and Warren had written a song, and that's not what rehab was about. And I didn't like the way it was going, and I went up to the counselor and I said, I don't think Warren is ready to come back to Philadelphia and live with me. And the counselor said, well, what should we do? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, if you're going to leave, who should we call? And I said, call Jackson Brown. So they did.
I love the name dropping. I'm going to read, because you were fired from finding your excerpt, so I'm going to go. This is why you should read this book, though.
can we edit this part out?
When the money started running out, Warren went back on the road. Money might not buy happiness, but on the road, you can rent it for a few weeks.
Oh, see.
With the right plastic. Thing is, with renting, you eventually have to give it back when your cards are maxed out. With no record company to pick up the tab, we were maxed out when the tour ended in L.A. That night I went to sleep early. What's going to happen? And Warren went out, tomcatting. I remember hearing voices and opening my eyes and seeing Warren sitting on my right and a black girl in hot pants with a huge afro on my left. I told you I don't do girls, she said to Warren. And what do you even need a hooker for when you got a girl like this? She looks like a Playboy centerfold. Did this really happen?
This actually really happened.
So when Adam took his wig off,
It was in Los Angeles, and I did wake up at the Sunset Marquee, and there was Warren and this hooker debating about whether or not I could actually be a Playboy bunny, and I was so flattered that she thought I looked like a Playboy bunny that I didn't notice that she went in the other room and stole all our jewelry. So
well, we brought some ears for you.
Okay, we only have a minute, so good. Bob Dylan changed your life. Another big name drop.
yes, Bob Dylan was sitting in my seat at a Bruce Springsteen concert when I came back from the backstage area, and I waited till intermission, and the lights came up, and Bob made me take him backstage. I had 20 minutes alone with him, and he told me to go back to Philly and become a big success, and I did.
And he was right.
And he was right.
And the conversation between Dylan and Springsteen, these two titans of music, was
It was a little monosyllabic.
Yeah.
Buy this book again, Anita Gevinson. You Turn Me On. I'm a radio.
My Wild Rock and Roll Life.
Life.
Amazon.com, and there's a beautiful Kindle version too.
And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Honor of your
And
presence.
there's
you.
a rare edition with upside down pictures.
Can't get that
And
anymore.
now we'll go to this. There we go.
Okay.
Too short, but thank you very
No,
much.
no, thank you, thank you.
That's my book. You give it to me.
Yes. All right.
Oh, you want it back?
No.
Okay, good, good. I want to read it.
I wish I brought 3, and I brought the second one and handed it, and then it went to you, and it didn't go to
I hope
Lynn.
we got, you honored us with your presence.
No, it's fine. Okay. Next.
It's
It's
great.
fine. Okay, who's next?
You reject. I wanted you when I was 17. You rejected me. But I'm great. Christian TV doesn't even deserve this show. We have such interesting. This is a salon on quick wit and mirth and talent and invigorating intellectual energy that we give off, and we should get paid more money. But anyway, we have again, who was on about 2 years ago, Peter Jeffrey de Krassel.
Correct.
He's professionally involved in representing American and Chinese corporate business interests in their efforts to bridge the gap between Eastern and Western cultures. Simple to say, hard to do. There's a lot of intrigue there. He is also a very international type person. He's written a new book, Peter D. Custom Made, MAID, Spin for a New World Disorder. In a nutshell, he says that America, through a lot of incompetence, short-sightedness, is being ripped off by China, and we, the American people, are footing the bill. That's a very, very quick synopsis. Do you want to, why did you say made in this book, M-A-I-D?
Because we, the people, the American taxpayers, are maids. We are constantly asked to clean up the mess career politicians make, and then we are asked to pay for the privilege. And as someone who spends a lot of time in Asia where maids are very cheap, I still haven't found a maid that'll pay for that privilege. So I don't understand why we American people constantly agree to clean up the mess career politicians make, and then are asked to pay for the privilege. So I'm referring to maids there as we the people.
But who's, are you talking, going back to the S&L crisis, up to 2008 with the banks, and that's what you're talking about, and we can't, you know, they screw up and...
Well, it's those are two recent examples of financial crises where the taxpayers have been asked to clean up the mess and then pay for it and foot the bill, while the people that created the mess get off scot-free. I mean, even in the recent 2008 financial crisis recession, there hasn't been one banker that has been sent to jail.
Yeah.
There hasn't been one politician that has lost office as a result of it. On the contrary, they have all benefited. The bankers have all gotten nice golden parachutes as their financial institutions collapse under them. And the bankers' lobbyists fund the politicians to get reelected while Americans are unemployed, the middle class is destroyed, jobs go overseas, and China and Asian countries basically have taken over the manufacturing that made America the great country, capitalistic, industrial leader that it was.
There's so much to say there.
Who in American politics is facing these problems that you cite?
Nobody that I know of.
Not Elizabeth Warren?
She is probably the most articulate person in that, and I do quote her in some of her recent statements in Custom Made Revolution, because she has tried and is a lone voice and is receiving a lot of criticism for it, and a lot of the adversaries and supporters of the existing system are doing everything in their power to vote her out of office.
But, you know, the average everyday layman like me, you said a whole lot, we could maybe go back and forth, but do they really know what's going on? Someone tells me that free trade's great for the whole world. At the end, everyone will prosper. I mean, what jobs could come back to America? You point out that China is basically our factory, and money will flow to places where it could be efficiently, where you could have efficiently cheap labor and everything. So why would companies...
There's no such thing as free trade. That is also a nice political spin.
So you're saying this is all, we're being fed a diet of misinformation?
Absolutely, absolutely. The trade barriers, that is what a lot of the developing countries are complaining about, is farmers in Africa or South Central America or any developing country that have very good agricultural products cannot export to markets like America because of the barriers that are imposed, the subsidies.
Exactly. No one touches the subsidies.
Exactly, but that's, so what is free about it? If your trade is being subsidized and given tax benefits and barriers are imposed, what's free about it?
So you're saying that lobbyist-inspired, old-fashioned capitalism, which is more like conquering.
It's mercantilism, the old traditional imperial mercantilism clothed in new contemporary language that the public naively buys.
Article in the New York Times last week about these recent Republican primary elections with the Tea Party. And there was an angle about the Tea Party I hadn't realized before, that a lot of the Tea Party, they don't like the old Republican establishment, which in effect acts for lobbyists from business, for business. And that, you know, these new Tea Party guys are actually against all that. So there could be unusual allies.
Yeah, when Cantor lost, and the Republican speaker, not speaker, but the head of that, Lockheed's stock went down 3%, they said. He was a bagman for Lockheed, in a way.
Well, that is part of what I discuss in Custom Made Revolution, and the book will be coming out in the fall. This is the uncorrected galley that is now being edited and reviewed by various politicians and other authors I respect. But on that very point, the Occupy Wall Street movement and Tea Party movement actually have a lot in common. And if you listen very carefully, they're saying the same thing, which is shrink government, be fair, don't cater to the 1%, cater to the masses. So Occupy Wall Street says it's the 1% versus 99. The Tea Party says, forget the people on the top, what about all of us? What about the middle class? What about cutting back on taxes? What about giving basically people their rights again. So they're saying the same thing, but again, the way political spin is spun in this country, they're made out to be enemies and adversaries, whereas in reality they're really saying the same thing.
But how can a country deal with these massive corporations without using big government?
And we have elections that are so expensive to run. And
Well, one of the other things I advocate, which many others have advocated, is public finance of elections as well. And you basically have to deal with the two-party system. You have to tackle it. You have to try and introduce a new party or a new movement. If you look at all the elections that have taken place recently in other countries, be they Israel, be they Italy, even India, it's parties that have only been around less than a year or so that wind up making the new governments. They win the large blocks. The same thing happened in America with the Tea Party. When the Tea Party first emerged, they were winning wherever they were. Their candidates, and what happened? They basically dominate the Republican Party. The Republican Party now, especially after what happened to Cantor, is listening very carefully to what the Tea Party is saying. And the Tea Party is opposed to immigration. Immigration is dead. So it's all the new movements. So I think the way the political world is evolving, it's more into movements than parties. And party is a phrase of the old world order. And the new world order that I talk about, it's people's movements that are going to basically make the big difference in the political landscapes everywhere.
How do you go about doing research for this book? It's 1,000 pages. And
Correct.
there's a lot, it's very big concepts, things that are hard to understand.
Several things I do. I have a lot of political science and history students that do research for me, and two of my political idols are Mark Twain and Will Rogers.
Oh.
And both of them talked about how Will Rogers got his content every day from newspapers, and Mark Twain the same thing. Mark Twain would write and read. And most of the information is out there. I read 5, 6 newspapers at a minimum a day, anywhere up to 10, 15, whether they're American, European, Chinese, and get different points of views. And the same on the news channels. One of the things that I find kind of surprising in America is that most Americans only look at 1 or 2 channels, either CNN, Fox, or their local channel. Whereas a lot of people overseas will channel surf news channels, myself included, whether it's Al Jazeera, even here in the US, or BBC.
a lot of Americans under 40 aren't that curious either. They don't
Exactly,
read, right?
but the information is out there. It's just a matter of how do you gather it and then put it all together.
I want to get into, and quickly though, you say that America, through misguided and bankrupt economic, financial, and foreign policies and alliances, has allowed China and its citizens to prosper at the expense and suffering of Americans.
Well, if you look at what has happened in China the last 10, 20 years, over 300 million people have been lifted out of poverty to middle class. That is a number larger than the entire population of America. And at the meantime, the American middle class has been decimated. And American jobs,
Stagnated wages, yeah, definitely.
and the jobs that those Americans were working at, most of them have moved to China. And they've been moved there by corporate America, because capitalism by its very nature is going to go where labor is the cheapest. And so that is why I made that statement.
So you're saying we're helping China prosper, they're going to be our factory, we'll buy their products, but the middle class are buying things they can't afford anymore from a country that's allowed to take their jobs through American politicians' lack of wealth.
Well, the irony of that is what the middle class, or what was the middle class, is buying and can afford to buy are only products made in China, because they're made cheaper than the products in America. So indirectly, the consumer in America is also supporting the manufacturing in China.